everybody, it's Joan, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about how I am planning to revise the second draft of one of my projects that I have done. I'm just going to call it by the name that I've been calling it. It's called Breaking Trust. I don't know if that's going to be like the final name of it or not, but for now, it's called Breaking Trust, and I started revising it and editing it a while ago. So last year, I think it was 2 years ago for Nano, so sophomore year of college, I completely rewrote and did the second draft of Breaking Trust, and it was a story that I wrote, I think, in 9th grade. So it had been a while. I let it sit and I let a bunch of things change. I think it went from 3 points of view to 2 points of view, just to make everything a little bit more concise, and the third point of view kind of is its own story in and of itself. And that one's kind of for not a more mature audience, but a bit older audience, but they all interconnect. So, also I printed all of it out, so I'm going to go ahead and share with you guys how I'm planning to do a first round of edits on this book, which I have never done before. So it's completely new territory for me, and it'd be super interesting to look back on this in a little bit and see how things change in future projects, because I don't know what I'm doing. I have started on it. I've read through like the first 3 or 4 chapters, so not a lot, but enough to know that it's not perfect. Nothing is perfect. But I'm using different colored pens to keep track of things. So the first one is a light blue, which is possible word changes, so like just random words that don't quite flow right. And then red is notes to self, and I'll kind of get into a few examples of these as I bring you through. And then green is character habits, and purple is things to keep consistent, just to make sure that everything kind of flows. But at the end of each chapter, this is a very rambly video in case you haven't noticed, but at the end of each chapter, I have a little summary type thing. So let's just go to the end of the first chapter, because nothing much happens in the first chapter. It's just kind of introducing people and letting the reader get to know these people. Oh wow, I introduced a lot of people in the first chapter, yeah. So at the end of each chapter, I have a list of the people that are introduced. So in the first chapter alone, I introduce 11 people, which seems like a lot. So it's like the 4 main friends, their teacher, her 2 siblings, her brother's best friend, her brother, as well as their parents. So it seems like a lot of people, but it's not, but it is. And then I also have in red, so just random notes to myself, like, is the lunch scene important? Because, you know, food scenes aren't about the food, it's about what happens. And I said, how can I make it better? Which is a great question, and I honestly don't know. But let's go through a few examples of just like the different categories. So for possible word changes, I'm just gonna look on the first page, and I've already got 2 written down. One of the first sentences is, this is how every one weekday starts as I start my familiar walk to school. It doesn't flow right, so take out every one, because I don't think that's what I meant. But instead, this is how every single weekday starts as I start my familiar way to school. Now, there's 2 starts very close back to back. I don't like that either. This is how every weekday starts. It's just, you have to like read some of the things out loud and be like, this doesn't make sense. This is how every single weekday begins as I walk to school. I don't know. It's one of those things you just kind of got to figure out. So the next one is notes to myself, and I already have a section on the next page written in red, just a note to myself. It's like a little bracket over an entire paragraph, and it just says, this feels like a large info dump. And that's because it is. And I don't know how much info dumping is alright at the beginning, because a lot of people say, oh, don't start your book with prose or a description or anything like that. And then also a lot of people say, don't start it with dialogue. And I'm like, well, how am I supposed to start it if I can't start it with either of those 2 things? So it starts with description, not like of the character, but just kind of what's going on and how things begin. It seems like an info dump. And then right underneath that, I'm moving into character habits. So things to keep my characters consistent, things to make sure that they are a character and that they have their own habits, they have their little quirks. So for my main character, I just circled the habit and then wrote it off to the side so that I remember it. So if I need to like look back and check what her habits are as we progress through the book. So the first one that I have circled down is that my main character pinches herself when she kind of like feels a little spaced out. The second one I have written down is that the main character's best friend is kind of happily and bubbly, and I need to add something at the end of the story to kind of twist that, because not everyone's life is perfect. And, you know, sometimes the happy, bubbly people are the ones that aren't doing all right. Yeah. And then on the last one, things to keep consistent. I don't know if I have any of this marked down yet. So I do have an example of things to keep consistent in the first chapter as well. And it just says Bennett's family, which is the teacher's family. And so she has 2 sisters, 1 brother, and they all take care of each other. And they're just super close, and they all take care of their mom, and it's super adorable. And I love their family storyline so much, and I'm not even close to telling it. But I don't know exactly what happens, but things happen. And yeah, so this is the first ever book that I've printed out, and I'm happy I did this because it's so, like, I wrote all of this. I wrote all of these words, all of them. Essentially twice, because this is the second draft. And then for the project that I was working on for camp last month, I do just need to write like 1.5 more scenes to kind of add a little bit more depth to something. And then once I get back to school, I'm going to print that out as well so that I actually have a physical copy and then I don't lose it, because apparently I'm just very prone to losing stories. I hope you all get something out of this. So basically the way that I'm marking up my story is that I'm having word changes, random notes to myself about things that are happening, character habits, and things to keep consistent. But I'm super excited to get into revising this. This is the first book that I will have printed out and actually read through and revised instead of just doing a second draft. And it's super exciting, and I'm super, super happy that I get to do this, and I am scared. I don't want to say scared, but I am a bit nervous for some people to read this book, just because it deals with some heavy stuff. Camp is over, and there might be a few weekly vlogs here and there, depending on what's going on. But for now, I'm just gonna kind of stick with my Friday rambly videos. If you guys have any video suggestions or topics you wanted me to talk about, writing related or not, please let me know down in the comments below. And question for you guys, when you are going through your draft, whether it's like doing a second draft or doing a first real like round of edits, what are some things that you guys look out for? Are they the things that I've mentioned? Are they other things? I would love to know, because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of faking it, but that's okay. If you guys like this video, go ahead, hit the like button. If you want to see more content from me, hit the subscribe button as well as the bell if you would like to. Completely up to you, not forcing you to do anything. And I will see you guys all in the next video, which will be hopefully next week. Bye!